This episode of the Beef Market Update is brought to you by Brett Young. You treat them like family, feed them like family. Talk to your retailer about Brett Young's forage and corn options for a happy, healthy herd.
Let's get rolling with the Beef Market Update. And of course, we're joined by Anne Wasko of the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Anne, how are you today?
Well, I'm good. Happy New Year to you, Sean.
Yeah, Happy New Year. That's right. I almost forgot this is the first Beef Market Update of the year.
24, that's right.
So what kind of start are we off to here in 24?
Well, of course, first quarters of any year aren't usually where we explode. Now, in the U.S., we did see the cash market a little bit better. 175 in the north. We'll call some live trade there. 274 to 275 delivered draft. That's 1 to 2 higher than the weekend between Christmas and New Year. So a little better sign there. A lot of talk, though, this week, Sean, as we start off 24 about the wholesale price, that choice cutout. It really ran into trouble as we started off the year, down $13 at the last night's close from a week ago, and that puts it at $275.90 on the choice. And if you're going to point your finger at one, it was the rib primal that really ran into the big, deep trouble that caused the market off that much. So that's got everybody talking about what does this mean for demand as we start off the year. And I know you've done some stories already on Real Ag about what demand is looking like. So that was the story there. And then just to finish on prices, and then we'll talk about some other things that are driving this. We didn't really have a pile of trade in Alberta, so not enough to report when we're doing this recording. Packers kind of out there with the 360 draft, and feedlots hoping it was going to be closer to 370. So we'll see where that ends up.
So I guess how deep in the red are Packer margins at this point then?
Well, this is going to send them, they actually had a profitable overall December. So this will be a bit of a shocker and send them into the red, in the range of $50+ at this point per head. But the question is where to from here. I think the other key point that we want to talk about as we start off the year, which is not going to really help things, is both the U.S. and Canada. We've got carcass weights running at record levels. So the U.S. steer weight last week, 942 pounds. That's up 22 pounds from a year ago. And in Canada, Sean, we're at a record 989 pounds. That's 50 pounds heavier than a year ago. And we've put on 30 pounds in the past month. Ooh. In terms of steer carcass weight. So, yeah, there's some big cattle going through the packer right now, and it's showing up in spades. So it just, in a nutshell, if you haven't put the pieces together, it just means every time you kill a steer, it's that much more beef to sell at the other end, and that just really causes a drag on the market. We've got to get through a lot of product here.
Yeah. And when we talk about concerns about demand, and listen, and that ship is like, that is not written in stone yet what demand's going to be like. But there is, like you said, there is some concerns out there when we've got the amount of tonnage that is going to be processed. We can't afford right now, one, a slowdown in domestic consumption, or any sort of disruption from an export perspective.
Those points, and then even bringing it closer to home, Sean, we want to make sure these packers are getting through and not backing off their kills. So like we talked about, packer margins going back into the red. Does that, did we slow down production pace at all? That's exactly what we don't need. Yeah. So things to watch, Sean, if you're out there watching data and numbers, we want to see the weekly kills staying high, whether it's fed cattle or non-fed cattle. We've got to get through supplies here in the first quarter.
Okay, now have they backed off the kill already? Is that what's driving those carcass weights higher? What's the key driver there?
Yeah, certainly in Canada, the fed steer and heifer slaughter was down really all through 2023, but the cow kill was up. So it's not like production overall at the plant slowed down drastically, but certainly the switch of the type of class of cattle, especially in that fourth quarter that they were really working on getting through. So it's that classic, there was a little too much of everything to get through, but we've got to keep the pedal to the metal in terms of our weekly slaughter rates.
Now, something that is a positive, though, we've seen some basis improvement.
Yeah, I did want to mention when the dust all settled for the month of December in Alberta, in terms of that spot basis, cash to cash, we did see it average 650 under, and that was the only month in 2023 that posted a better than the 5-year average kind of number. So that was interesting to see. But overall, again, hate to rain on the parade, but for all of 2023, we ended up at minus 14 or 14 under the U.S. That's one of the weakest years other than, say, 22 and 2014. So 2023 doesn't go down in the record books as a strong basis year, but we did finish December in better fashion. So we'll watch that as we go through the first quarter. If you recall last year, Sean, we had such a difficult first quarter in basis levels. So that'll be something we're going to watch closely as we start off the year.
Yeah, we were talking about demand a little bit earlier. We've got some data on November retail prices in Canada.
Yeah, if you thought you were spending more money at the store for beef in Canada in November, these are November average prices from StatsCan. The beef price was up 11% from last year for November versus the previous November, so at $21.75. Pork prices in November were up 5% in Canada at retail, and chicken prices actually dropped 2% from the previous November. So interesting move, but certainly beef leading the pack and ending the year about 6% higher overall from 2022.
We're going to need to see beef potentially being real featured at the grocery store in some of the flyers and some of the advertisements here.
Yeah, whether it's retail features, or it'll be interesting to watch and see, do we get some food service features? As it'll be interesting to see how end users try to move product when we've got these issues on the other end in terms of consumers and the economy, and if inflation's slowing down, but what's going on with employment and all those pieces. It'll just be interesting to see how things pan out as we go through the year.
Yeah, you said on the average up 11%. Is there any kind of cut that's kind of leading that? Like, is that hamburger or tenderloin?
No, good. Yeah, good catch. Good point out, Sean. Certainly that rib, anything from the rib was up big time in November over October, whereas the ground beef price actually held just steady. So if you saw more deals on ground beef, this data would confirm that, but you did not see many deals on rib products in November in Canada.
Interesting. And thanks so much for joining us here this week for the Beef Market Update. Really appreciate it. Have yourself a great weekend, and we'll chat with you in a couple weeks.
Hey, thanks. You too, Sean.
Thank you for downloading this episode of the Beef Market Update, brought to you by Brett Young. Check out their silage and grazing corn, stock blends, or custom build your own mix for a happy, healthy herd. Talk to your retailer today.